Hi, it's me, Ingrid INFP, and I wanted to talk about philosophical paradox that I discovered from Love Who's channel. Love Who is an INTP who does great videos about MBTI, and he understands INFPs very well. And I have a soft spot for INTPs in general. Um, I think that he does a great job, and he was talking about a paradox for each of the 16 types. So these are philosophical paradoxes. And the paradox I chose for INFPs was the ship of Theseus, which I don't know philosophy, so I had to look it up. And it really, really does. I think the INFPs understand the dilemma of this much better than other types. Other types won't think about this as much as we would. But the ship of Theseus, I'm going to read the Encyclopedia Britannica. It's an ancient paradox regarding identity and change across time. So this is a field of metaphysics, and discussions of the ship of Theseus are associated with different philosophers, blah, blah, blah. And so the original problem of the ship of Theseus was that there's a ship that Theseus, who was the king of Athens, or the founder of Athens, I don't know, he wanted to, so he defeated the Minotaur, which was great, and he took a ship, I don't know to where, anyway. This ship, everybody was so happy that he had defeated the Minotaur and was a hero, and so then they commemorated his great feats, his exploits, every year. Once a year, they would bring this ship out to sea, and they would have a festival for him. And thing is, after many years, the planks started getting moldy and rotten, and the nails would get rusty, and these things would have to be replaced in order for the ship to keep sailing. So they would replace planks, they would replace the nails and stuff. And then in the end, after many years, none of the materials of that ship are the same as the ship had from the start. So would you still say that that's the ship of Theseus? Would, if this ship had none of the same materials as it did at its founding, would you still call it the ship of Theseus? At this point, it's just a ship, It's just, well, this ship has so gradually changed over time. It still is a ship. They didn't make a car. Well, they didn't have cars. They didn't make a cart out of, the materials that rotted down, they burnt it, I don't know. Or they could have used these parts to create a cart or something. And would you say that the cart is more ship of Theseus than the ship that has none of the same materials from the original? Because the cart is actually built from the same material. So there's a distinction between what is the object, what the material versus the function. And so then with time, contemporary philosophers realized that this was a good metaphor for identity. And so identity, it changes over time? And are we still the same person, you know? Are the objects the same, even if they're completely different? So I was thinking of this while I was doing my crochet, okay? I have this little start of a granny square, which I made, and I was thinking like, oh, I made a mistake, so then I had to unravel. It's really easy to fix a mistake on here because you just tug on the string and then everything just unravels. That's I did it on this one too. And if I redo it, is it still the same granny square? It's made out of the same material. What if I made a granny square with the exact same pattern with another yarn? Would it still be the same granny square? Like, there are all sorts of things that you could go on tangents of. The human body, you don't have any of the same cells. 7 years ago, because 7 years is the approximate time of the longest living cell, which I think are your stem cells, or either that or the nerve cells, I guess. Immune cells. I am not composed of any of the same cells as I had 7 years ago. And yet, I still count myself as me. I still think that I am the same identity. Like, I still call myself Ingrid. I still am an INFP in my brain, at least, from my sense of identity. I don't have the same convictions as I had 7 years ago. Why would I still be me? Like, what is this identity that is somehow such an important part of our lives? And I think that we INFPs can live in this paradox. And we understand it as a paradox. But it still is our life. Because our life is centered around the concept of identity, about us in this world. Wanting to know our purpose, our life, who we are, who we really are, if we can say that, really are in this world. And I think that we are, out of all the types, the ones who are most aware of this paradox, that we are the same as we have always been. We are authentic to ourselves, and yet we are completely different, because identity is fluid, like it changes, and yet it's still us, you know? And I think that a lot of types can get lost in this. Like FE users, like high FE users, they'll think that they're a role that they play, that is their actions, that their identity is only what they show to the world. Or they'll say that a lot of TE users and FE dominants will think that all they are is how they are useful to other people, how much they have achieved. I think that high FE users sometimes don't know which are their own emotions compared to other people's emotions. Sometimes they create a persona without even like realizing it, and then they neglect the part of themselves that is them when they're alone. So identity is such an integral thing that we think about almost daily, I would say. You know, like, does this align with who I am? And like, who I am, like, what a fuzzy concept, you know? But I think that it's we're much more integrated into the world in that way. it's weird to think because INFPs are like not integrated into the world. We're like little bubbles floating around, lost in the world for the most part. But I think that we are very in tune. We resonate. We have met a certain wavelength where we're at peace with the world. Or like we are integrated in the fabric of the world. And we know that it can be woven in and out, like the crochet, like I can weave it in and out and I'm still me, you know? Just like this crochet, this yarn is still yarn. I'm still me, you know? There are a lot of concepts that I want to talk about right now, but I don't have time. I was thinking of the Wheel of Time and the I haven't read the book series, but the TV series Wheel of Time is about a lot about the wheel of time, and what fate is, and you know how things are woven in and out, and that there are certain things that are like knots in the tapestry. Actually, this metaphor is going nowhere. What I mean is that the metaphor in itself is really true to how I see my identity. It's like a tapestry. It can be changed. It's not set. You know, it ravels, unravels. It can be rewritten on, but it's still the same fabric in my mind, at least. And the fabric of the universe, I'm in this, baked into it. I'm a part of it all, you know? And so I think that sometimes we have to invent things in order to be able to survive, you know? In order to make sense of things. And these things might be huge oversimplifications. It might be not at all how the world works. But I think as human beings, we have to, in order to not go insane, you know, we have to have kind of a sense of identity, that we are us. That was like the founding of modern philosophy was, I think, therefore I am. I inhabit the world, you know, I inhabit this body, I am me, which are theoretical concepts, you know. These aren't things that, you know, I can't like point to this thing and say, this is my identity. I know the things I like, I know the things I dislike, but these things are subject to change. I know that I'm a mortal person and that I only have a certain amount of time in this world. And like, I can make peace with a lot of things. That I think a lot of people would get tongue-tied about, like, and I think that is one of our strengths as an INFP, is we are connected to that spiritual realm in a way. Our conscious, our souls, or whatever you want to call it. We aren't connected to the physical world in the way that like an SE user would do it. But we see the bigger picture. So first of all, we see the bigger picture. So we have an E, we have FI, which is the identity function, you know, kind of. It's about like what we feel, what our values are, what's like, who are we? And we've got SI as our third slot, which is how have these experiences shaped me? Who, like, what makes sense in the world, you know? And TE, which is kind of about setting boundaries, setting the, like, drawing a line around things. If you check out, there's one of my TE videos where I talk about how I finally connected with TE, and it was a emotional experience. It was like it was a religious experience. The sun was coming in and everything. I just realized, like, oh, the TE is the line around the fuzz, so that I can actually see things, so that I can actually draw a picture that makes sense. And so having TE, it's our inferior function, but it does actually help us in, like, realizing that we are not like everybody else. We are not like FE dominant people. They'll have no idea where their self ends and begins, and where somebody else starts and begins. Well, I think that since we have TE and FI, we can delineate our own selves. We can see the form. The form might be ever changing, but we are aware of the form that our identity is taking. It's like we're a big blob, you know, and other people can't see the intricacies of this blob. But I can see the shape of it at a certain time. That made no sense. Okay. That made no sense, but it made sense in my head. Okay, well, anyway, this gave me a lot of food for thought. I think that we are, like, masters of identity in terms of, like, in the MBTI 16 types, we might be the most unsure about certain things, but I think that we are pretty humble about it. Like, now I'm being, like, really humble, right? Bragging about INFPs, but but I mean that we are sensitive to the fact that, yes, like, our identity will change, it will be fluid, it won't always be the same, but that we have to be aware of this sense that we have of identity in order to navigate the world, and in order to see what is hidden in the sensory world, you know. So all this, from a ship to, like, this philosophical discussion about souls, or consciousnesses, or whatever you want to call it, to, like, crochet. I think that this exemplifies, like, how INFPs think. We can see all of these patterns, and it's like, we are not as good at seeing things as, like, INFJs would be, you know, and, like, having their NI powers, which I envy, you know. But I think that we can see the big picture in another way, in a way that maybe isn't all encompassing and eerily accurate as NI, but we can see the depth of what it means to be human. And in a different way, okay? Not in the FE and I way, and in the FI and E way. Sometimes we truly live on a different plane of existence. And even though we don't seem as intuitive as some other intuitive types, because we're pretty, we're not really always into abstract stuff. I think that we are really in tune with like the spiritual way of life, So tell me what you guys think. What do you think about the paradox of Theseus? Do you have any other ideas of like what the sense of identity, when is it still you and when is it not? Where do these limits go? Are we still the same human being 7 years later? Are we still the same as when we were babies? Tell me what you guys think.